We're like the Baltimore Falcons, am I right? I'll shut up now. Welcome to the jungle, everyone. I'm Kyle Phelps, and I'm not entirely sure that anyone is actually good right now. Like, obviously, I was wrong about the Eagles, and we'll get into that in a minute, but other than that, I'm lost, dude. I am totally lost. But before we get into the power rankings, I'd just like to ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. It'll help you catch more of these videos, and it'll help my channel grow, and that's important. So we're just going to briefly go over the bottom three categories at the beginning for now, and then we'll dive deeper into the teams that I think are poised to make the playoffs in the final three categories. Fair? Fair. So as you can clearly see here, this is the way that I see all the teams that I don't think will ultimately make the playoffs. And to be clear, I do have a playoff hunt category, which are teams that I could potentially see things turning around and getting back into the race. But for now, they're just not there yet. Some highlights include the Carolina Panthers, whom I think are probably the worst team in the NFL right now, but the Texans are still winless, so I can't really justify putting anybody else at the bottom of the power rankings when they don't have any, power. Then there's the Detroit Lions, who I think could potentially get into the playoff hunt the way that their offense is playing, but my God, that defense might be historically bad. The offense scored 45 points, and they managed to lose. Like, how do you do that? That's just awful, dude. Alright, so that's all the other teams. We're going to start our deeper dive now with the playoff hopefuls. I don't want to spend too much time on the Dolphins and Browns because they're not in my top 14 right now, but I'll just say with both of them, their quarterback situations are concerning. We knew that about the Browns. Didn't know this was going to happen with the Dolphins, but it is what it is now. That's why I'm not totally sold on these teams just yet. Although, the Dolphins do at least have a decent defense. Hint, hint, Browns. So, at number 14, I've got the Cooper Rush-led Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if this team is actually making the playoffs, being in the same division as the Eagles, but I gotta give them credit for actually looking better with Cooper than they did with Dak. I don't know how you do that, but it happened. At number 13, I got the Tennessee Titans. They're starting to turn things around now that they're back at 500, but they almost blew that game against the Colts. They could easily be 1-3 right now. At number 12, I've got the San Francisco 49ers, who took a 4-spot jump this week after dominating the Rams. Seems like Jimmy Garoppolo was actually the better option at quarterback all along, but, I mean, come on, guys. They always beat the Rams. So, I mean, let's see if they can keep this up before we start putting them amongst the contenders. Let's see if maybe they can beat the Rams when it actually matters. Finally, at number 11, I've got the Jacksonville Jaguars. They gave the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles a run for their money this week and might have won, but second half turnovers killed them. Next up, we've got the contenders. These teams, I think, are definitely playoff caliber teams and probably capable of becoming Super Bowl caliber if they fix a few things. At number 10 is the Minnesota Vikings. This is pretty much par for the course for the Vikings, isn't it? Doesn't matter if it's Mike Zimmer or if it's someone else. So, like, should you have fired Mike Zimmer? I mean, maybe, honestly. He wasn't getting along with Kirk Cousins, and you kind of can't have that. They were probably poised to no longer be a playoff team the way that those two were fighting. But, I know they're 3-1 right now, but that beatdown from the Eagles is still ringing in my ears. And, the way they played this week, it's like, it was really close. It was really close against the Lions, too, so I'm kind of like, I'm not really fully sold on this team just yet, but I mean, they keep playing like this. They could win whatever, honestly. At number 9, I hate this. It's the New York Giants. Why? Because of Saquon Barkley. Finally giving the Giants their money's worth for that number 2 overall pick a few years back. Daniel Jones wouldn't be leading them anywhere by himself the way he's been playing, but they'll win games if Saquon rushes for 146 yards every game, and all Daniel Jones has to do is run touchdowns in on his legs. Number 8, I've got the Baltimore Ravens. And, yikes, dude. 2 weeks in a row, they've blown huge leads. We're like the Baltimore Falcons, am I right? I'll shut up now. But I will say the Ravens are drastically in danger of falling next week in the power rankings if they can't beat the Bengals at home. Speaking of which, I've got the Cincinnati Bengals at number 7. And I know beating the Jets wasn't that impressive, but beating the undefeated Miami Dolphins, I think definitely is. And don't give me any garbage about winning because of the backup quarterback. The Bengals were arguably doing better when Tua was in the game. That's just how this confusing-ass team rolls, man. You got to give them credit for starting out. You know, they started out 0-2, things weren't looking so great, and then they figured out who they were, and now they're looking good. Number 6, I've got the team that beat them in the Super Bowl last year, the LA Rams. I wanted to put this team lower. I really did after that awful Monday night game, but honestly, that's just how this team rolls. You know, they lose to the 49ers, but they seem to always beat the 49ers when it really matters, so I'll give them a mulligan here. Finally, I've got the Super Bowl caliber teams. As of right now, these would be the teams that I would expect to see in the Super Bowl at the end of the season. Number 5, I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know they've lost 2 weeks in a row now, and both of those losses came to other Super Bowl caliber teams. But this was the first week that the defense allowed more than 14 points, and the offense finally woke up to score over 30. So I think once this team gets going, they're going to be really hard to stop. At number 4, I've got the Green Bay Packers. Tom Grassi said that he's not going to put the Packers in his top 5 this week, but I think that's kind of an emotional reaction on his part. I know that that was a rough game, and the offense really struggled in the first half, but they're still 3-1 right now, hampered only by a potentially fluky Week 1 loss to the Minnesota Vikings. So it's like, do they have their flaws? Of course they do. The offense kind of, needs to step up a little bit. But I think the Packers are still one of the teams to beat in the NFL right now. And number 3, I've got the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. And don't kill me. Don't kill me. I know they're the only undefeated team in the NFL right now, and they just beat a really solid Jacksonville Jaguars team. That running game looks amazing. But Jalen Hurts, he definitely struggled this week, and I don't know how sustainable this current run of form is. But obviously, I'd have to be an absolute hater to not consider them among the 5 best teams in the NFL right now. And number 2, I've got the Kansas City Chiefs. 41 points against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that had yet to allow more than 14 this season. That's kind of insane when you really think about it. Last week's loss to the Indianapolis Colts looks a little bit fluky now, so I put them back up. Time's going to tell, but ultimately I think this Chiefs team looks really damn good at the moment. Finally, I've got the number 1 Buffalo Bills. I was kicking myself a little bit there in the first half for giving them the benefit of the doubt last week after losing to the Miami Dolphins, and then I put them at the number 1 spot because I thought, honestly, 7 out of 10 times they win that game against the Dolphins. But they turned things around in the second half this week, and they proved me right in incredible fashion. I actually live streamed that game, and it turned out to be the perfect decision among games to stream because there was no Bengals game. Josh Allen was on a damn mission in the second half, and they did struggle to finish drives on offense, so there's room to improve, but they did enough to claw all the way back and get that win. So that's what I've got this week, guys. What do you think? I know that my power rankings don't exactly reflect the NFL standings right now, but I think that's kind of really the whole point of power rankings, especially early in the season. So let me know what you thought about what I came up with this week in the comments below, and I'll feature the best ones in my next video, like this one from Majestic YT, who was on my Bengals Dolphins recap video. He said, "I've been waiting for this video. Good win versus the Fins. Also, prayers out to Tua. That was a rough hit and unnecessary, to be honest." Honestly, man, I don't think it was an unnecessary hit at all. Josh Tupou brought him down on a very normal football play. And that's exactly why I think it's so reprehensible that the Dolphins even allowed him to play in this game, considering what happened against the Bills. Stuff like that happens all the time. Like Josh Tupou's hit happens all the time in the NFL. But Tua was extremely vulnerable to a play like that turning disastrous. I agree it was a good win for the Bengals, regardless of what some people were saying about the backup quarterback situation, but obviously it's going to be marred by what happened to Tua. Everybody's going to remember that game because, Tua went to the hospital, and, I feel for Tua, and I wouldn't want anybody to remember the game for anything else. But, man, honestly, fuck the Dolphins for letting him play in that game. So, I know the power rankings are a bit of a mess right now, guys. Honestly, I think they're going to shake out more concisely as we have more football to analyze. But until then, you can always find me at KylePhelps92 on Twitter, Facebook.com/ThePhelps, my Bengals coverage at ATBNetwork.com, the Battle of Ohio podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and right here if you subscribe. But thank you so much for watching, everyone. I'll leave y'all, as always, with a hootie!